Dr. Deskin, please share with us your academic background, including any degrees or teaching certificates that you might have.
Okay. I have an elementary certificate, elementary degree from the University of Central Oklahoma.
Okay.
I have a master's degree in secondary education from the University of Oklahoma. I have a PhD in instructional leadership and academic curriculum from the University of Oklahoma. I have a certificate from Harvard in strategic school management.
Okay.
And I have a number of postdoctoral credits in finance from Oklahoma City University, and I have over 2,500 clock hours in the aerospace sciences.
Great. Now, are you currently certified in Oklahoma as either a teacher or superintendent?
I'm certified as a teacher in the state of Oklahoma. When you get a degree in instructional leadership and academic curriculum, the instructional leadership is that you take the courses for a superintendent. I was recruited almost immediately when I completed my PhD by Oklahoma City University to be a dean there.
Okay.
So I didn't take that test, but I've been an assistant principal, and now serve as what would be a superintendent at Highstakes.
Great. And you've run Aztec Charter School for a number of years, right?
14 years,
okay.
Yeah.
And we'll get to charter here in just a minute.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, it seems to me one of the biggest frustrations today that teachers and students and parents have is all the time that we're taking in class to prepare for testing and the high stakes testing that we get into at the end of instruction sometimes. What is your opinion of high stakes testing, and specifically of our third grade retention law that we now have, as well as the fact that we're not getting some seniors graduated on time?
Boy, there's a lot there.
Yes.
So first of all, I think that the loss of instructional time is a big pet peeve for me.
Okay.
It was when I was a teacher for 15 years. I wanted my students to have as much instructional time as possible, because we know that there's a direct correlation between having a teacher present with a group of students and keeping them on task and their achievement. So I've seen over the years a decline, and particularly in the last few years, a decline in instructional time that teachers have. My own teachers are upset about it, complain about it, and it is primarily, of course, some are laws that have been passed that whittle away at our instructional time, and things that are important. But I think you have to ask, at what point, when you only have 175 school days, do you stop whittling away at instructional time for students? The high stakes tests certainly take a lot of that time. We've had to turn one of our classrooms into a full-time testing center, so that teacher has to use a little cart to push his things around and go from classroom to classroom. We have a full-time testing coordinator because it is such a huge drain on time. So the high-stake testing for a number of things. I'm not opposed to testing. I know that I always relied on that each year, that one time a year that we got our information back as to where our students were. And it was a measurement, an assessment for us to be able to communicate with the student, for us to be able to communicate with the parent, and for us to make a plan of how do we move this student if he or she is behind, how do we move them to where they need to be, how do we differentiate that instruction to help them. But what we're doing now, I think, is highly inappropriate. We have children all over the state that are dropping out of school.
Right.
I know Oklahoma City doubled their number of student dropouts last year with high stakes testing over the year before. So I think we have to be careful that the cure is not worse than the illness, and I believe that is the case. I also have a problem that a test is going to determine whether a student who's been in school for 13 years has shown up day after day, has done many things that the teacher has observed, and we have called that for some time authentic assessment, where the teacher is taking into account several things for that student that tells the teacher whether they are ready to move forward or to be able to graduate.
Right.
So I have a problem that students maybe drop out of school and they can go and get a GED, and I'm grateful that we have that program for them. But you have a student and they get a graduation certificate,
right,
basically. But a student that comes to school every day, does what they're asked to do, and performs in many different authentic ways, and we're going to deny that student the opportunity to graduate. I don't think that's appropriate at all.
Well, and I know the legislature is already tinkering with our third grade assessment issue, and then of course you've already addressed it, but the highly controversial issue of some students being denied a high school diploma. So I think unless you want to add anything on that, I think we understand.
Well, I was just going to say the third grade retention, I think that's going to change. I think what a lot of people don't understand, we're not saying that a child who cannot read at all is going to be promoted to the fourth grade. We're talking about a child that may be a few months behind. And I know for many years, and it was the case when I was in school, you had the bluebirds and the redbirds and the yellowbirds. Mm-hmm. And the bluebirds were truly the only ones that were reading on grade level. And then your redbirds may have been a few months behind, your yellowbirds may have been a year behind, and instruction was differentiated in that way. Of course, today we differentiate instruction in different ways. But I think punishing a child, particularly when we know that 1 in 6 of the children in Oklahoma live in poverty, and we also know that a child in poverty will start kindergarten a year and a half behind. So I think third grade's a little late to try and do that. I think the emphasis needs to be much younger, but it also requires resources and small class sizes.
Right, that's exactly right. The legislature, as you know, has passed a bill that would end, so to speak, Common Core. And that's a very general question, but give us your views on Common Core. Is it something that, as a state, we should adopt? And just your opinion in general on that.
Well, you know, when Common Core first came out, I said I'm agnostic because I am not going to make a decision on something based on what in either political party or anyone tells me. I'm going to investigate it myself.
Right.
So I actually, and remember, I'm a curriculum specialist. I've written curriculum for a number of states and a number of organizations, including Epcot Center and NASA, Microsoft. And so my job in that was looking at curriculum and matching it to skills that each state had, their standards, and seeing if they were developmentally appropriate for that student. Could they cognitively, what we know from medicine and educational research, can that student at that age cognitively grasp and understand and internalize that concept, or are they just memorizing it? So I actually printed out the Common Core. It's very thick.
Right.
Print it all out. And I started with the lower grades. And what I found in a number of instances in the lower grades was that there were concepts that were being tested that did not match what a child of that age could do. I'm all about standards. I think we have to have standards. I don't think there's anything sinister afoot because we've always have had them. Then as I looked at the others, I do like some of the critical thinking skills that are embedded, and I'm very concerned that we did not have input from educators, from Oklahoma curriculum specialists and researchers to be able to look at that and to field test it first, like you would always do with anything before you send it out. I have a problem that teachers are being evaluated on something that they haven't been thoroughly trained in themselves, and that they can even be terminated if the students don't score well. So my view now is that the implementation of Common Core has been tragic in my view. Millions of dollars have been spent, thousands of hours by teachers and students and parents, and a lot of stress for young people. I think we need to take a step back and bring educators to the table to redesign this, and not the State Department of Education.
Okay. Dr. Deskin, do you think traditional public schools are failing our students in Oklahoma, and if so, how?
I think some are. I'm very hesitant to make a blanket statement about any, whether it's teachers or schools. They're all very different and very unique. I am amazed at the many wonderful things that I see with some really great administrators and some really great teachers across the state. There are certainly people that should not be in school administration, and there are certainly people that should not be in education. It's not for everyone, but that's true about everything, about every field. I don't think that when you look at the task that education has before them, the expectations from society and from the government, and the mandates, and so many people putting their finger in the pie, I'm amazed that our public schools are doing as well as they are. I applaud them.
Great. Talk to us a little bit about the situation we have now where school districts and school sites are receiving letter grades A through F. Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Do we need to change it, or what is your opinion on the system we have?
Well, I think parents and stakeholders certainly deserve to see how their money is being spent, and to expect that our children are successful and that we build a sound workforce for Oklahoma. I'm very disappointed in the A to F system. Once again, it had no input from researchers who actually know research design and reliability and validity, and that test, again, was not done on this A to F. I am very familiar with schools that maybe have made an F that are much better than one that I've seen that made a B, and it's such a narrow spectrum of what's being judged, and it concerns me that in our high poverty inner cities that teachers will not go there, where it's already difficult to find teachers to teach in the inner city, because they have yet more difficulties to contend with. But I'm concerned that teachers and administrators will go school shopping to shop in the areas where the resources are available, and where the parents have more resources and time to spend with their children. So I have a concern in the way we've done it.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your position on the teacher retirement system, and I think specifically what they're after is the notion that we're going to change the type of contribution plan that we're on, and I know our viewers probably would be interested to know if you think that's a good thing or not.
Well, I think changing the rules of the game in the middle or toward the end of the game is probably never a good relationship builder. Our teachers who've taught for 40, 45 years, I'm meeting them, have taught 48 years, that expect, and they plan their whole life on that livelihood of what they're going to expect. So I think changing the rules on them is actually a very cruel and thoughtless act. I know that we're told that the money isn't there, but there are those who say, yes, the money is there. And the money is not there simply because it was borrowed and not replaced.
Right.
And so I have a real issue with that, but you don't change the rules. And it's so difficult to attract high-level teachers and administrators as it is, and it's going to be more difficult. I hear every day across the state of teachers that are leaving and administrators at the end of this year. So I think this is going to cause yet a greater decline in people going into education and in young teachers or veteran teachers staying in education.
And I think what's on the table, one of the things on the table is for new teachers, when they enter the system, they would be going from a defined benefit system, which we have now, to a defined contribution. And I think there's probably arguments for and against that, but your view on new teachers, where we're not affecting anyone that's already in the system, but
right,
for new ones.
Right. I think it might be difficult to attract some of the new teachers to that. And I know from experience that in a 401k, for example, which is what this would be, or a TSA for teachers, it takes a lot of discipline not to take that money out, or to feel that you can afford that. My concern there would be for new teachers coming in looking at something different.
Or leaving the state.
Or leaving the state,
yeah.
where they
right.
which we know that happens frequently.
Right. Thank you. Another broad question, Dr. Deskin, but what areas, general areas of education are currently underfunded? I'm not sure we have any that's overfunded, but if they are, what would those be?
I'm not sure we have any that are overfunded anyway. I think school administrators in the state of Oklahoma today that can operate in the black are geniuses. They have to say no a lot
right.
to the things that are needed in the classroom. So of course our teachers go out from their salaries and purchase the things that they need. Of course that's been happening for many years, but I hear it's happening more and more now as more school administrators and school boards have to say, no, we can't afford that. Our teachers, obviously, being ranked 49 and being so far below the regional average, we're not going to attract or retain high-quality teachers. Our colleges of education already have, their numbers are down. We don't have young people going into education. So I think investing that in our students, in our teachers, to attract them and retain them, but also materials in the classroom. By the time you've paid for your payroll, right. You only have a few other things, and the rest of what's left goes into the classroom. So I'm very concerned about the large class sizes, the moratorium on class size, right. what that's doing at a time when we're expected to do more and more. We have less and less with more students to divide our time among. So I think also we have, even in our federal programs, where our money has been cut, special education particularly, where we seem to have more children, not seem to, I know we do have more children with special needs and more autism, and yet our federal funds are being cut, and the school still is responsible for providing, so that comes out of the general fund and leaves less money right. for the classroom.
Right. Very, very challenging situation, as you said, to be running a school these days as a superintendent. Now, talk to us a little bit about your views on charter schools. I know you have an extensive background with charter, but just kind of give us your view on charter in general.
Sure. Charter schools were designed initially to be in the inner city, where there were a number of failing schools, classroom shortage, lack of building space, and so forth. And that's how it came into Oklahoma. I was a dean at Oklahoma City University when charter school legislation first came about. Had never thought of starting a school, but I worked with some adjudicated youth through a grant that I wrote at OCU that lived around the 23rd Street area. And I learned about their siblings who were out of school, about their family members who were being shot and murdered. And so I rented space in the old Shepherd Mall, where I have 98% poverty, 800 students, grades 6 through 12, that otherwise would not have an opportunity. And they may not have a space, or they wouldn't be in school at all, because we provide food pantry, clothing, whatever it takes to keep these children in school. And that is exactly what the charter school movement was about in the beginning, and being able to try new things with maybe less restrictions, although those restrictions have dwindled.
Yeah. Was that during Governor Keating's early years, or give me about a time frame on that?
That would have been, I know at the time it was I think it would have been, been Keating.
I know, I remember the late John Bryant, who worked
Yes.
extensively on the legislation, and I think it was during the Frank Keating administration,
Yes.
maybe his first term.
Right. So I think that that's what they're meant for. I have a concern for some of these states who have very weak laws. In Oklahoma, all charters are public schools, and they have some very strict guidelines. In some of the other states where they do not have those strict guidelines, and they have hundreds of schools and grown too quickly, and they do not have they don't have restrictions placed on them, and I think that's a problem.
You might address also in terms of teacher evaluation. My understanding is that charter schools can evaluate their teachers differently. They're not under the TLE like public schools are. And what's your view on that, and do you think that's a good system?
Well, the Teacher Leader Effectiveness program that says the evaluation that half of the score is based on the student outcomes. I'm concerned again that teachers will go student shopping where they have an opportunity to teach children who come to school with better skills. They're not as far behind, and they're not having to spend as much time even paying for children's yearbooks and things like that, because there's no way they can afford those. Charter schools can use either the TLE or they can use their own research-based. We have been using one at Aztec that is, and they're actually called clinical observations, when you really look at the science of the things that are observable that a teacher does. We believe that what we are using provides much better feedback. It's not used as a punitive tool. It does not take into consideration what the student grade is, or what their score is, but it actually looks at the things that are observable, and it becomes a tool for coaching, coaching from the administrator to the teacher, and is actually seen as a positive thing. That would be my concern for the TLE. I don't think it looks at all of the things that research says that are observable, so that a person can be taught to observe these behaviors in a teacher and give them feedback on those. So I would like to see that improved and used in a different way, not as, again, as a punitive measure.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Deskin, please share with us your vision for the State Department of Education and for public schools.
Well, I believe the State Department of Education should be a resource to schools, to educators, and to parents that benefit students. I would immediately have people, the State Department, the employees, answering the phones. I think that the Ritz-Carlton customer service model is an excellent model. We use it at our school, and I would like to see that used at the State Department of Education, because our customer is the teacher, the school administrator, the parent, and the student. I would like to see the State Department of Education be a place where people feel welcome and want to come and feel free to move about the building to see the professionals there that they need to see. One of the other things that I would do is I would bring back that school directory that allows educators to be able to look in a paper directory. Now, I love technology, and it's great to look online, but the one online hasn't been updated since 2010.
Right.
So when you need to reach an administrator in another district to share some thoughts or ask for their best practices, or who do you use for this, or where are you getting the best vendor for, where have you found that that's very difficult to do these days, because that is not updated. Or to call the State Department. What person do I call? It's just a very, very common sense, logical, handy thing to have, and I would definitely want to bring that back. I am concerned that at a time when teachers were not getting raises and classrooms are getting larger, that our current state superintendent increased the pay of a number of employees far beyond what any teacher or administrator is ever given a jump in salary, with the statement that to keep good people, you have to pay them well. Well, I would say to keep good teachers and administrators, you have to pay them well. And I would look at that entire budget, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, see what is excessive, see what we need, how do we best serve the educators and the families of Oklahoma, and not have it a political or a self-serving budget. And
I'm assuming you would also take a hard look at the FTE, the number of employees. Is
Absolutely.
the agency too big, too small?
Yes, and the other thing is paper reduction. I don't think that if a person has not been a school administrator in Oklahoma in the past 3 years, they can imagine how much additional paperwork is created. Administrators, superintendents need to be able to spend time with their school administrators. School administrators need to be able to spend time with their teachers. Teachers need the time to spend it with their children. But we're spending a lot of time in what is unnecessary paperwork. All of it does not come down from the mandates. I have some ideas. I've met with a number of folks that have overseen those areas in the past, and they are very positive about the reduction in paperwork that we can do. Let's get back to the students and get rid of so much paperwork.
Our guest today is Dr. Freda Deskin, who's running as a Democratic candidate for State Superintendent of Schools. And we appreciate your time, Freda. And in closing, is there anything else you would like to share with us, with our viewers, from you as the candidate?
Yes. I would say that I have more of the classroom experience, K-12, than all the other candidates put together. I have taught in rural Oklahoma, where I taught multiple grades in a K-8 school until we got large enough that I was teaching the 8th grade, coaching girls basketball, the assistant principal, all those things you do in a small school, medium-sized schools, and the inner city. And while I'm running as a Democrat, no student has ever asked me my party,
right.
And I've never asked a student their party or their parents' party, because I'm running for all the children of Oklahoma. My only allegiance is to the children of Oklahoma, the schools that serve them, and the communities that serve them. I believe that we have to address the issue of attracting and retaining high-quality teachers and administrators. We have to address authentic assessment. School improvement is necessary. Every profession can improve, and ours certainly can as well, but it needs to be an authentic model, and that's what we will strive for. And finally, I think local control where it's appropriate, and I think it's appropriate in quite a few places, needs to be brought back. And I understand that the government and the legislators, because we are taking tax money, but I am concerned that they overstep the local school boards and the local communities and the local school administrators to the degree that it's harming our schools, and it will ultimately harm our businesses and our state as well.
Well, thank you. And before we go, if you don't mind, share with the viewers how they can find out more about you, your campaign, if you have a website, etc.
Yes, you can go to www.Deskin for Kids, and that's like put your chair in your desk, Deskin for F-O-R Kids, KIDS.com. You can call our campaign office at 405-600-9333. My email address is deskinforkids@gmail.com, and I will respond to those questions as well. But I would encourage them to check out my past experience and what others have said about me. And I'm very proud to have my former student, former First Lady Kim Henry, as my campaign chair.
Awesome. Best of luck to you, and again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.